Yes, those are my feet. That is our happy place at Belmar, underneath the jetty. Beautiful, in a hammock. Love it. Ann and I love to go to Belmar and hang out. Before I forget, Pastor Trey had shared about meet and greet. That's for those that are here, like if you're newer to Bethel, so it's not for everyone to go over there, but if you're newer to Bethel and want to meet some of our leadership, we'll invite you to come over after the service for sure. My question for you today is there anyone here today who is tired? Is there anyone who is running on empty? Is there anyone that needs a vacation from that crazy vacation? Because we live in a crazy world, don't we? So today we're going to be talking about how to find rest in a crazy world. And I want you to look at the screen, and I need participation. I don't have the skills to do this without your help. So I need your help. So I'm going to put a sentence up on the screen. I want you to think about what your answer is. For instance, without rest, I tend to drink a lot of coffee. But without rest, you tend to do what? Just shout it out. Danny, give me one. Do you have one? Without rest, I what? I get upset, irritable, lash out. How about from that corner up top? You get forgetful. Get lazy. Without rest, you tend to get lazy. Okay, we take all answers. I tend to get hangry, hungry and angry. I can get a bit snappy without rest. But when I go without rest, I tend to lose perspective. And when I start to lose my perspective, I end up almost all the time in a very unhealthy place. It's never good. And we live in a culture that elevates hustle and grind, right? I mean, those are like, if you hustle and you grind, like, you're there, man. We respect that. Some of you are now beginning to work next to robots on your jobs that never need a rest. But God didn't create us to be robots. He created us to be human beings, not human doings. And God designed us for the inbuilt need to rest and to be renewed. Now, some of you might be saying, well, I don't have time for rest. If I rest, I get further and further behind. If I get further and further behind, I get more and more stressed. There's no way I can rest. I just don't have time for it. Well, I have a riddle for you to solve, and here it is. Okay, so we have two people cutting down trees in the forest. Two people cutting down trees. They're both built about the same size, equal strength. One cuts down way more trees than the other one. Why? They just keep going because they never get tired? But they're equally strong, so they should both.
So I'm saying one guy is tired, the other guy isn't.
Okay. Technique, motivation, okay. I love the participation. You guys are catching on. All right, here's the answer to this riddle. The one that cut down the most trees was the one that kept resting to sharpen his axe. Seems totally counterintuitive. Well, if you take a rest, there's no way you're going to ever cut down more trees. But yeah, you do. Rest is important. Rest improves our productivity. And if you believe everything the internet says, I'm going to quote this, and I know we have Lisa, who's a health coach, that might tell us how important rest is. Rest is vital for better mental health. It increases concentration and memory. It results in a better immune system. It reduces stress. It improves mood and improves your metabolism. That's hard to say. So rest is important. But we don't know if we can believe everything the internet says, so we're going to go to God's Word and see what God says. At the very beginning of time, when God had completed creating this planet, it was a perfect place. There wasn't one blemish of sin. It was perfect, and we read this. So the creation of the heavens and the earth and everything in them was completed. Now on the seventh day, God had finished his work of creation. So he rested from all his work. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy because it was when he rested from all his creation work. And the thing that really stood out to me when I was looking at that is God, who's all-powerful, who never gets tired, at the end of creation, he rested. What's up with that? So rest was so important that even at the end of creation, when God did all that work, he wasn't even tired. He chose to rest. So he modeled to us what rest looks like. Now fast forward to the nation of Israel. They've left Egypt. They're on the way to the promised land that God had promised them. They're wandering through the wilderness. And at one point, God gives them the Big Ten, the 10 Commandments. All right? And the fourth commandment is this: remember to observe the Sabbath by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each week for your ordinary work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath day of rest, dedicated to the Lord your God. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and everything in them, but on the seventh day he rested. So the whole idea, the concept of rest, not just the day, but the idea that we need rest in our lives, is something that God elevates and values. And so I get that my quote right. I just want to read this. The principle of rest is really an invitation to trust that God will take care of us. We have to trust that if we take a day off, the world will not stop turning and everything will be okay. It reminds me that I am not God. I am not center of the universe. It's an invitation to surrender my control to the one who is in control, to trust that God has me and God will provide. Resting is actually an invitation, an opportunity for us to have our faith stretched as we rest. So God obviously says that rest is important. But in our world, we live in a crazy world, and there are so many things that today I could say, if we're going to learn how to rest, let's talk about our health challenges, or let's talk about relationships. All those chaotic things that swirl all around us right now in our world, including world events and China and everything going else on right now, can be overwhelming. I don't want to look for rest and talk about that today. What I want to do, I want to look inside of us. I want to focus on the obstacles that I find to finding rest in my life. So today I hope that as I share, you will courageously think about what is going on inside of your heart. And that's a scary thing to do, because a lot of times you look in there and you don't want to look back because you're afraid of what you find. So I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you today. A question that I was working through for a good part of my life was, why do I find it so hard to rest? Very simple question. Why do I find it so hard to rest? And what I came up with is 3 main obstacles. And the obstacles you come up with to finding rest might be different than mine. The first one, I'm a people pleaser. I hate to say it. Are there any people pleasers in the house? Oh, yeah, even more than last service. Okay, we struggle to say no. It's hard to say no. We want to say yes all the time. We don't want to disappoint people. We hate conflict. I can't stand conflict. My stomach gets all in knots. We desire people's approval. I said it. We desire people's approval. Yeah. So how bad is it, you ask? Well, let me tell you how bad it was for me. I remember one time, and this is so embarrassing to tell you, but it was in the mid-'70s, which some of you may not even remember or been alive for. But it was like interesting stage of ugly meets cool fashion. You know, I had these big plaid pants that were really nasty with thick, wide belt, and I needed shoes. And the shoes to get back in the day were what? The big, thick platform shoes. So because it was in the day before Amazon, I actually had to go to this thing called a store with bricks. And I go into the store, and I had to buy shoes. And I kid you not, I walked out of that store. I didn't like the shoes, and they really didn't fit me. But I couldn't say no, because there was this thing back then called the shoe salesperson that would like stalk you around the store until you walked out with a pair of shoes. And I got home, I'm like, Mom, Dad, I don't like these shoes. They're like, why did you buy them? I couldn't say no. Now, seriously, it's exhausting being a people pleaser. When you say yes to everyone, you are unable to say yes to the people that matter the most to you and to the things that matter the most in your life. Lecrae had a powerful statement. He said, if you live for people's acceptance, you will die from their rejection. That's so true and so powerful. On to the second obstacle. Here we go. Oh, playing superhero. And thanks to Amazon, these days, we all can be superheroes. Let me get on the right way. Yeah. So, I get to be a superhero. I have a tendency to fix things, sometimes struggle with boundaries because I just want to come along and kind of make it better for someone else, even if they don't want to make it better. Let me see. I just put this on myself, didn't I? Do you know what sometimes happens? Sir, could you come up here? Would you mind? Yeah, you. Come on, give him a hand. What's your name? Anthony's coming up. Now I want to show you. So sometimes we put on the cape ourselves, but you know what? Turn around, Anthony. Show him. You're the man. You're the superhero. Sometimes other people come over and they put this cloak around us. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it. Maybe it's caring for all your extended relatives, your aunts, your uncles. You're the go-to person. When something happens, who gets the call? You do. In the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, they call you. And you become, over time, the superhero. Have a seat, Anthony. Thank you. Let's give him a hand. The problem with being a superhero is you might hurt the person that you're trying to help out in the long run. How will they ever grow and develop? What will they do when you are no longer here? One of the things that encouraged me with this obstacle is when I look at the life of Jesus, Jesus did not meet every need around him. There are a lot of people that weren't healed. There are a lot of people that didn't get his touch. But he has still accomplished the mission of his life by prioritizing his life around his mission. So maybe it's time we take off superheroes or capes, lay them aside, we acknowledge that we aren't God, and we step back and we let God be God. You ready for the third obstacle? This is a tough one. This one's been plaguing me my whole life, the performance treadmill. The performance treadmill. Now, some of you that know me know that I tend to be a little bit of an intense person, saying it mildly. I would honestly say I'm a recovering workaholic, I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I'm a recovering superhero. And for many years, I found it close to impossible to step off of the work treadmill. It was a reoccurring struggle all through my adult life that I tried to address at different times, and I just couldn't figure it out. I kept trying to figure it out. The other day, I was at my mom's house. She's 91. She lives in an independent living. Let's hear it for Lydia. She lives in independent living, a retirement center, and Mom's tooth broke, one of her molars. So she called me. It wasn't hurting, but she called me because it broke. And I said, Ma, I'll take you to the dentist. Let's make an appointment. We can't do that. Not this week. Ma, why? You broke your tooth. Well, because I have too much work to do. My 91-year-old mother had too much work to do. She doesn't have a job. Her tooth just broke, but not this week. I'm too busy. And I kind of looked at it and I said, wow, okay, I see maybe where I get some of this stuff. At times, honestly, I enjoy the adrenaline rush, trying to hit a deadline, the excitement of it. Other times, I would feel very guilty when I relaxed. And this is hard to say, but I was judgmental when others around me did not work as hard as I worked. I was like, why don't they just work harder? I often had a hard time being fully present because my mind was always racing. And it would get on this treadmill. I couldn't turn it off. I just kept going and going and going. And I had no idea why. That was the hardest part. I had a few wake-up calls, but one of the significant wake-up calls was when Hannah, who's with us today, with our beautiful 8-month-old, almost, granddaughter May and her husband Clayton, we were sitting around our kitchen table. She was about 12 at the time, and we were having supper. And Ann said this to me very graciously, trying to really bail me out. She said, Steve, are you going to answer Hannah's question that she's asked you 3 times? And honestly, my mind was so far away, I hadn't even heard the first question that she had asked me. And it really broke my heart. I was like, this just isn't good. I'm hurting the people that I love. So I started to connect with a counselor. I did that for a few months, about once a week. And it really seemed to help. I began to become aware that there are these warning lights that go off on the dashboard of my heart. When things are getting out of balance, I need to back off. I need to have rest. I have more balance. I need to say no. But understanding the why was still a huge mystery for me. Why was I so driven? I just couldn't understand it. Then a few years back, my treadmill broke. It really broke. And I was forced to stand still for a really long time. And it was a painful time, but it was a beautiful time because God used it in a significant way in my life. I started meeting with a counselor 3 days a week for a few months. 3 years later, I still meet with him once a month. We work through many things together, and I want to share one of the many things that I work through. Some of you know that I grew up in Africa. I was born in Zimbabwe, which at the time was called Rhodesia. By the time I was 19 years old, I had only lived in America for 1 year of kindergarten, for 1 year of sixth grade, and for half a year of seventh grade. I was truly an African American. I was. My parents would work in Africa for 5 years, and then would come back for a year, and then would go back for 5 years. Over the course of 7 years, I went to 6 different schools in 3 different countries. Each time, I was the new kid on the block with the weird accent trying to fit in. I loved to play sports, and that really bailed me out. That became my survival mechanism, but it also became my prison. I quickly figured out that when people liked and respected me, or they liked and respected me when I helped them win. And without being aware of it, I was finding my worth by my performance, by doing. Over time, I had become a human doing instead of a human being. That was why I was so driven and could not rest. What would I be worth if I wasn't doing something for somebody? What complicated it was I was doing some really great stuff. I was working at Bethel. I was doing this for God. How could I say no? I was surrounded with so many deep needs. How can I tell someone I can't go to the ER or I can't bury their son? I felt I couldn't say no to certain things. During my counseling, I also revisited a pivotal time in my life when I was about 11 years old. And I've described it to a few friends as a hole in my soul, an unresolved ache deep, deep in my heart. And I feel weird sharing this with you because it doesn't seem that big of a deal in an adult mind. But when you think of it as a kid, you start to realize, wow, this can be weighty. Our family returned to America after being in Zimbabwe for 5 years, like our normal routine. Meanwhile, in Zimbabwe, a war was intensifying. So immigrants that were living there were required to serve in the army for 2 years before they could leave the country. So if we went back to Zimbabwe, I couldn't leave that country until I'd gone to the army for 2 years. And in that war, I would have to go carrying arms fighting against the very African people that we were serving and that we loved and cared about. So many families started sending their kids back to America before they could be drafted, to be raised by extended family. So I left Zimbabwe without saying goodbye to many of my friends because I assumed I would be back in just a year. But one night, my parents called us into their bedroom, and with my sister, Deb, and my brother, Tim, they shared that they would not split our family up like that they could always find other work, but they only had one family. So we would not be returning to the place I called home. Instead, we would move to South Africa to serve people there. I remember crying myself to sleep, realizing that I had instantly lost my home and literally all that I had known. I thought I had dealt with this hole in my soul over the years, but I did not realize the hold it still had on me. I tried to share it with some people, but I felt embarrassed because it seemed like their eyes were just glazed over. They just couldn't relate, so I just stuffed it down. Here's something that I wrote called Goodbye, and it kind of sums up kind of what was going on in my heart during some of that time. And this is just part of a poem that I wrote. Goodbye. Unearthed a hole in my soul, but I wasn't sure why. It had to do with saying goodbye. Good. Bye. Bye, but not so good. Zimbabwe, the sounds of heat in the dry season. Creepy crawlies, all shapes and sizes. Breathtaking sunsets. Beautiful black skin. Eating masao, gnawing on a strip of biltong. Sucking on a bitter pit from a baobab tree. hopeful smell of rain in the distance, dirt roads running red in the rain, flying ants swarming under street lights, climbing trees like a monkey, white ant mounds taller than me, lulled to sleep by rain on a tin roof. War, landmines, struggle for power, posters in school warning of weapons of war. South Africa, the new kid, again and again and again and again and again and again. 3 countries, 6 public schools, all in 7 years. How's that even possible? Too many goodbyes that were not so good. Loss of 2 countries, loss of smells, flavors, and seasons. Loss of an accent, languages, and cultures. Loss of friends, teammates, and teachers. Loss of aunties, uncles, the families we created. Loss of who I was becoming. Longing to share the life I once lived with a new world far removed with seemingly little care. So that gives you a sense of just the feelings that I was feeling with this news that I could never see my home again. There is a powerful verse that I just love in Zephaniah. It says, "The Lord your God is in your midst." I want you to picture this. It's you and God. The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty warrior. He will exalt over you with joy. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with shouts of joy. During the time that I was struggling through this, Ann and I went away for our anniversary, and we booked an Airbnb in this place called Manasquan, New Jersey. We had never, ever been there before, and we saw the owner. I've been to a lot of Airbnbs before where I've never met the owner, but the owner met us, and they said, "Hey, there's the best pork roll sandwich place in the whole area is up the road. It's right there at Allenwood General Store. You walk in, is a little food place. They've the best pork roll sandwiches." So we went there, and the sandwiches were okay. I really don't like pork roll, but we had to try. It was like the cool thing to do. But it was in that place that God quieted my heart. It was the most supernatural thing I've ever experienced of God kind of reaching down and giving me a hug. And attached to this building, there was this antique thrift store, and this is about a third of the inside of it. And it was connected right to where we're eating. So we saw it. We said, "This is kind of cool. Let's look through it." So I started looking through it. And I don't know if you can see, but if you look at the interstate sign, look right above it, and you'll see a little bit higher up, you'll see a little flash of yellow. Do you see that? Well, that kind of caught my eye, and I just got drawn to it as we were walking around. I walked closer, and my goodness, there were tons of National Geographics. Before the day of streaming National Geographic, you get your magazine and you travel the world. All right, well, so I go over there, and this is what I found. On the spine, it says, National Geographic, May 1975. That was close to the year when I left Zimbabwe. And on it, it says Rhodesia. And here it says, Rhodesia, a house divided. And in this book are 30 pages detailing how the country was the day I left. And it was a powerful thing because for me, we had never been to that Airbnb before. If that person had never told us and suggested that place, we would never have gone there. We went there, but we decided to stay and browse. We stayed and we browsed, and what did we find? We went right to the spot and found what God had there for me. I was able to finally find rest when I understood just how much God's got me. He's got me. It's okay. I can let it go. I can release it. It was God's way of letting me know that even though many may not understand, He saw me and He understood me. If you have a disappointment deep in your heart that you've carried in here today, I want you to know that God sees your hurt and that He cares. you can invite him to quiet you with his love so you can find rest and really rest. Maybe you're here today and you have recently crashed and burned and your world's fallen all apart. Don't give up. Do you know that you may be in the best place for God to grow you? Don't give up. I had a chance to talk to two men within the last few weeks, and each of them individually shared just the brokenness in their life and how their lives were coming apart. And as they shared this story, I was so encouraged because they said, do you realize you're in the exact place now where God can do his best work in your life because you're ready, you're looking for him, you're broken, you're open. Don't give up. What's your identity? I want to tell you today, I want you to hear this loudly. You are not worth what you produce. You are not worth how fast you run, how good you can sing, how you look, what clothes you wear, how much weight you can bench press, how much money you earn, how many likes you get on social media, what zip code you live in, or what car you drive. You are valued because you are made in the image of God, and nothing will change that. And if you have placed your faith and trust in Jesus, you are a son or a daughter of the King of Kings with full rights and privileges as his son or daughter. There's a verse that I just love. It's where Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls." This is a yoke. And what a yoke does is, there are two oxen, and one's neck goes in one of these loops, and another neck goes in the other loop, and this goes over their shoulder, and together they pull. Together. What Jesus is saying is, his head's through the one side. He's looking for you to join him on the other side. He wants to walk alongside of you so you're not walking alone. But the question is, not is, will Jesus be there? The question is, will you be there? Have you accepted Jesus' invitation to let him come alongside of you to help you find rest? You know, when Jesus died on the cross, he paid the sin debt that we all have in full. And then he was raised again on the third day. So we don't have to try and earn his approval anymore. We can't. That's the beauty of grace. It's better than we deserved. Jesus died on the cross so that when you acknowledge that he is the Son of God, then you understand that you have sinned and your sin separates you from God, that you can choose to invite him into your life, to be forgiven, and to walk alongside of you. If you have not taken that step, if you have not come to Jesus for rest, I encourage you to do that. I just ask you all to bow your heads, and I'll just say this prayer. And if you truly believe this, you can pray it silently where you are. Lord, I know that I have sinned. Thanks for dying on the cross to pay for my sin. I believe that you are God's Son. Please forgive me and come into my life and guide me. Amen. If you've taken that step, you are a son and a daughter of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And that makes me your brother. As we close out, there are 4 questions I want to leave you with today to process through this week. The first one is, are you willing to accept Jesus' offer to share your load? You may have known Jesus a long time. You may have put your faith and trust in him a long time ago. But maybe you're still trying to figure it out all yourself. I do it myself. Why do it yourself when you have the King of the universe that wants to lighten your load? How are you unintentionally hurting? Who are you unintentionally hurting by neglecting rest? You know who it was for me? It was my amazing wife, Ann. It's my amazing daughter, Hannah, and her husband, Clayton. It was my amazing son, Jonathan. It was my amazing daughter, Elizabeth. That's who I was hurting by neglecting rest. Think through the names. Who are you hurting when you neglect rest in your life? And then ask God, like I did, to show you the hidden obstacles in your heart to experiencing rest. And then this week, just one. What is one step that God is asking you to take to rest? Why don't we all stand? I'd love to pray for you. God, I thank you that in a world swirling in chaos, that you love us more than we can ever begin to imagine. You care about what's going on deep inside of our hearts. Please reveal to each of us the obstacles that hold us back from truly finding rest in you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Have a great week.